Feel for philosophy. Feel the thought, think the feeling. Welcome to our new discussion on Introduction to Business Ethics. Today, we will explore nature, scope, and roles of business ethics. Please stay with us. Presented by Feel for Philosophy.
All right, let's get right into it. When you hear the term business ethics, it's easy to think it's just about, not breaking the law. But it's so much deeper than that. Really, it's a clash of two giant ideas. Should we follow the rules no matter what happens? Or should we focus on getting the best results, even if it means we have to bend those rules a little?
Look, most companies have a code of conduct, right? It's supposed to be their ethical roadmap. But the real question, the one we're going to dig into, is what's the philosophy that's actually guiding that map? Is it built on a foundation of unbreakable rules, or is it all about getting the best outcome for the most people?
Because when that ethical map leads a company completely off a cliff, well, the results are catastrophic. We all know these names. These weren't just business failures, they were massive, world-shaking ethical collapses. Think about Enron. They took that results-first idea to such a toxic extreme that they justified pretty much anything to pump up their stock price. And these kinds of failures, they cost real people their jobs, their savings, and they just shatter our trust in the whole system.
So let's just make sure we're on the same page. Business ethics is not just about what's legal. It's about the moral principles a company chooses to live by. It's about building a rock-solid foundation of trust with everyone, customers, employees, the public. At the end of the day, it's about having integrity, especially when you think no one's watching.
Okay, to really get a feel for this tension at the heart of ethics, we're going to step away from the corporate world for a minute and step into a scenario that is way more dramatic, one that presents a truly impossible choice.
So, picture this. It's a situation straight out of the movie Outbreak. There's this lethal, incredibly contagious virus, and it's completely taken over a town. The military has the whole place quarantined, but they've come to a terrifying conclusion. The only way to stop a global pandemic that would kill millions is to bomb the town, killing every single person in it.
In the movie, one of the generals just lays it out in the starkest terms imaginable. It's a brutal, brutal calculation. You've got the lives of a few thousand people on one side and the lives of millions, maybe billions, on the other. There is no good answer here.
So I'm asking you, what would you do? Seriously, before we move on, just think about it. Could you give that order? Would you sacrifice thousands of people to save the rest of the world? Your gut reaction is probably pulling you in two totally different directions at the same time. And that feeling of being torn in two, that's exactly what this whole debate is about. It basically boils down to two major ways of thinking, two completely different approaches to figuring out what the right thing to do is. Okay, so on one side you've got deontology. This is all about the rules. It says that certain actions are just fundamentally right or wrong, and what happens afterward doesn't change that. Then on the other side you've got utilitarianism, and that is all about the results. For a utilitarian, the most ethical choice is simply the one that creates the most good for the most people. Let's break that down. A deontologist looking at that outbreak scenario would say bombing the town is absolutely morally wrong, period. And why? Because there is a core moral rule here. You do not kill innocent people. It is your duty to follow that rule. And the fact that you might save the world, well, that's irrelevant to whether the act itself is right or wrong.
Now, a utilitarian would see this completely differently. They'd just do the math. Bombing the town is horrible, of course, but it prevents a global catastrophe. The outcome, saving millions of lives, creates the greatest amount of good for the greatest number of people. So from that perspective, it's not just the right choice, it is the most ethical choice you can make. Okay, so let's bring this high-stakes philosophy back to the business world. How do companies try to handle this exact same tension between rules and results in their day-to-day work? Well, usually, they start by writing a rulebook.
Now, these codes of conduct didn't just pop up out of thin air. They were mostly born from crisis. You can kind of see how it happened here. Back in 1991, new guidelines started encouraging companies to teach their employees about ethics. But the real game changer was 2002. The Sarbanes-Oxley Act, which was a direct response to scandals like Enron, basically made having a code of conduct a legal necessity for public companies. Then, just a couple of years later, the rules changed again, pushing companies to build an entire ethical culture, not just have a document sitting in a drawer.
And you know what? It seems like it actually helps, at least on the surface. A survey of employees found that a huge majority, we're talking 73%, say the code makes their company a better place to work. And get this, 62% even said it changed their own behavior for the better.
So yeah, the document itself can have a real impact.
But here's the thing. Just having the document isn't enough. Not even close. The million-dollar question is, how do you make it stick? How do you actually turn a piece of paper into a living, breathing part of how a company operates?
Well, there's a pretty clear process for creating a code that actually works. You have to start by getting input from everybody, not just the execs, to find out what dilemmas people are really facing. Then you write it in plain English, get leadership to sign off on it to show they're serious, but these last two steps, they are absolutely critical. You have to train everyone on how to use it, and you have to create a real system to enforce it and keep it up to date.
And that really gets to the heart of it all. A code of conduct is just a document. A real ethical culture, well, that's what people do when they think no one is watching. The paper can guide the culture for sure, but it can never, ever replace it.
So why should any of this matter to you? I mean, this can all feel a bit academic, but this conflict and the gap between what's on paper and what happens in reality, it has very real consequences for every single one of us in our jobs.
Let's start with some good news, because there is some. According to a recent global survey, when employees actually see something wrong happening, the vast majority of them, 72%, report it. That's huge. It shows that people really do want to do the right thing. They want the rules to matter.
But here's the gut punch. That first bar, that's all those brave people who spoke up. And that second bar shows that of that group, a staggering 46%, almost half of them, said they faced retaliation for it. This is where it all falls apart. The official code of conduct says speak up, but the actual culture punishes people for doing exactly that.
So what's the takeaway here for you? It's that understanding these different ethical mindsets, rules versus results, helps you see what's really going on inside a company. It helps you tell the difference between a place that just has a document to cover its own back and a place that actually has a conscience, that's trying to build a real ethical culture. And that leaves us with one last big question. Any company can write a code of conduct. They can put rules on paper. That's the easy part. But can it build a culture of courage? A culture where people feel safe enough to actually follow those rules, especially when it's tough? That, right there, is the real test.
Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support encourages me to create more content. Thank you.